you have a very beautiful touch and very beautiful feelings, but the sound sometimes it didn't come out. To be more relaxed. For me, it's too tight to be, let it out a little bit. Yeah, okay. Hey, let's. Yeah, it's already better, but let me show you this. Yeah, so when you start the first phrase, first bar, you need to think about this is actually 5. Oh, I think your left hand need to be soft. Goes up. Yeah, better. Goes out. He wrote, I love that. Enjoy. But you haven't enjoyed much, yeah? So oh, actually, no. Much, but I just want to give you the idea. No, this theme, it's like little waves, Bass. Yeah. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. This one, you go down too fast. Create a special clash. No, I need to hear. That's yes. No. Yeah, this time should be very soft. That's no problem. Because you see, if you start playing too soft, and I just really, your left hand bothers me so much. let's try from da da da. It's like air. Yeah, and then now play both hands softer. One more time. It's just dream, okay? Don't really put. This is like a most colorful place in the piece. Okay? You need to be so colorful, not just one color in a moment. Yeah. Try it again. Da da dee da, da dee da, da dee da da, da dee da da, dee. It's almost there, but this. Okay, that's red, lighter, right? Okay? You need to be so colorful. Da dee da dee, da da dee da, da dee da dee. It's almost there, but this need to be like four. Okay? That's red, lighter, right? And lighter, and lighter, and turn to a light yellow. So somehow. Think about you're a painter or something. More. No, the first one need to be more. Need to come out. Now, yeah. Okay, now let's not changing tempo much, but the same color. Try it again. It's the how to make the pedal sound work. So you do like, don't change. And then you have it. Yeah, so just mixing it. No, you change too fast. Don't change. That's it.
President-elect Joe Biden met with a number of Republican and Democratic governors yesterday, and joining us now is someone who is part of that meeting, the Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan. Thank you very much for being on the show. I know the state reported yesterday the highest new coronavirus cases ever, highest number. How did it end to try and stem the tide of
productive meeting that we had yesterday? I was of the organization, so we're 5 Republicans.
postcard and a motto. It's a great pleasure and a privilege to have you here, and to know that not even a bit of volcanic ash from it's a testament to your dynamism. Thank you for giving up your hour to come to Melbourne. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. It's been a great pleasure to be back in Melbourne after 7 years. I was still young at the time when I came last time. And this time it's a very short visit, but I hope it's more meaningful than playing a recital, which is actually, it's great to talk about music and listen to wonderful pianists from Melbourne. And thank you very much for coming, and let's have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. He's just won the first prize in the International Chopin competition in Malaysia last November. So we were all very proud of him. And he would like to play for the Chopin variations of Brilliant. Please.
Что-то работа не та, и семья не та, или жизнь не та. А может, я не тот. Вот.
Hello, I'm Graham Fitch, coming to you from Steinway Hall in London, and in this particular video I'm going to answer questions that Pianist Magazine readers have sent in for me. Specific questions about specific pieces, as it happens on this particular one. And Ed has written in asking about the repeated octaves in the right hand of Earl King. It's particularly difficult to manage this. Let me see if I can do it.
Дети учат английский быстрее, чем взрослые?
Нет.
Прежде чем начать говорить, нужно выучить всю грамматику?
Нет.
Заниматься лучше всего?
In July, the Trump administration, as part of Operation Warp Speed, agreed to provide Pfizer with $1.95 billion to manufacture and distribute their COVID vaccine, allowing this vaccine to be provided free for the American people. While Democrats were pursuing a highly divisive and entirely baseless impeachment endeavor as far back as January 13th, this president, the Trump administration, and the National Institute of Health was partnering with Moderna and working on this vaccine for the American people. But that's not all. This administration has remained engaged on the development and distribution of a safe and effective vaccine throughout the year. Began in January and continued thereafter. On May 15th, Operation Warp Speed was launched. On September 16th, we released 2 documents outlining a strategy to deliver a safe and effective vaccine. These documents were the strategic distribution overview and the interim playbook for state, tribal, territorial, and local health programs and partners. On September 23rd, we provided $200 million to jurisdictions to support plans for eventual distribution. On October 14th, we provided $31 million to Sitvia for vaccine-related consumable products. On October 16th, we made agreements with CVS and Walgreens to administer vaccines to residents of long-term care facilities. On October 21st, under the PrEP Act, we issued guidance authorizing qualified pharmacy technicians to administer the vaccine. On October 30th, we announced that McKesson Corporation will produce, store, and distribute vaccine ancillary supply kits on behalf of the Strategic National Stockpile to help healthcare workers who will administer the vaccines. And on November 12th, we announced the partnership with large chain pharmacies and independent regional ones to deliver safe and effective vaccines. The unprecedented response to this pandemic has already saved many American lives. And as you can see, this timeline was ongoing. This was a long process and one that we are very proud of. Now with multiple safe and effective when you cannot do so. And with that, I'll take questions. Kevin.
Kaylee, thanks. I'm going to ask you a question that I'm asked fairly often away from the White House, and that is with respect to what Rudy Giuliani and the legal
EVE Online is a vast universe.
Team on the campaign side had to say yesterday. People asked, let's suggest that yes, there is evidence of fraud, irregularities, even malicious intent with respect to vote totals. The question is, what then would be the pathway or strategy to overturn what the campaign believes is a flawed election? Are we talking about a judicial pathway? Are we talking about a legislative pathway? And a follow-up, how soon might Americans be able to get their hands on a COVID vaccine?
Yes, so to your first point, I would say this. There's been multiple pieces of litigation filed across the country by various individuals, the campaign and others. I will leave it to the campaign to make those determinations as to how to proceed, but the president's been very clear. He wants every legal vote to be counted and to make sure no illegal votes are counted. But with regard to a vaccine, we believe that there will be 40 million doses available by the end of the year. Again, this is extraordinary. This is the fastest vaccine in history by fivefold. It's really extraordinary progress. You've heard Dr. Fauci, among others, say that, and it was only made possible because of this president who said at the same time I'm pursuing a vaccine, I'm going to do something novel. I'm going to manufacture it. So many American lives will be saved thanks to President Trump and the great work of Operation Warp Speed.
Can I follow up one more? Just one thing about the COVID vaccine. Is there a concern inside the White House that a lack of working with a potential or presumptive President-elect Biden team will somehow slow down the distribution of the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. It's an important one, and not in the slightest, because in fact I did hear the former vice president say yesterday he was concerned about not being able to distribute a vaccine. He shouldn't be. Maybe he hasn't seen, but we have publicly available if the former vice president would like to read through it. Beyond that, I would say that we've already, going back months, partnered with the 64 jurisdictions in this country to make sure that they each had individualized distribution plans. Those have been assessed. Those have been made certain that they're good and operational. So this work has been ongoing. There's a distribution plan in place, which is why you heard General Perna say yesterday that within 24 hours of getting that EUA, the emergency use authorization, we will be able to distribute this all across the country.
When are you going to make the law?
Yes, Kevin? Yeah. Sorry, Mario.
Okay. Thanks, Kaylee.
what is the president planning to discuss this afternoon with the two Michigan lawmakers? And will he ask them to have the state legislature appoint electors who will support his reelection? What's the nature of that meeting?
So he will be meeting later on. This is not an advocacy meeting. There will be no one from the campaign there. He routinely meets with lawmakers from all across the country.
When will you admit you lost the election?
Kaylee, at what point does the president concede the race and allow for a proper transition to the Biden team?
So right now there's ongoing litigation. There are, what we know, 74 million Americans that voted for this president. That's more votes than any president has gotten in history. It's really extraordinary, and there are very real claims out there that the campaign is pursuing. 234 pages of affidavits publicly available in one county alone, that's Wayne County, and 2 individuals on the canvassing board there that have declined to certify. So these are real claims. These individuals deserve to be heard. This was a system that had never been tried in American history, mass mail-out voting. It's one that we have identified as being particularly prone to fraud, so those claims deserve to be pursued.
Has anyone from the White House spoken with GSA, with the director of GSA, about the timing of ascertaining who the next president will be?
Ascertainment at the right moment. Right now, there's a constitutional process that's being played out. There are questions being asked in court, but the GSA will determine when ascertainment is reached.
Can I just ask one other question, which is Senator Lamar Alexander today has put out a statement encouraging the Trump administration, in the absence of ascertainment, to begin allowing the Biden team full access to everything they need for a transition, access to agencies, access to real-time data. What's the harm in doing that?
So there's a Presidential Transition Act that determines exactly what an administration needs to do in advance of an election, and we have done everything statutorily required, and we will continue to do that.
It's after the election now.
Thank you. I have a question first, a follow-up on the transition. Has the president or anyone in the administration instructed officials not to engage or have conversations with members of the Biden transition team?
No, I've certainly never been instructed that. I've never heard of an instruction to that end.
Okay, and my second question is about COVID, because yesterday, back then, the projections were that 100,000 Americans would die. Now, as you know, we've surpassed that by 2.5 times. Did the administration fail to communicate how serious this threat was to the American people? Or how else do you explain what went wrong?
Look, I would say the initial projection that our doctors gave us was 2 million people that would lose their lives. And it's with the China travel ban, creating the greatest testing system in the entire world. Therapeutics, the fact that we have 6 working therapeutics right now. The fact that we continue to identify more and more. The fact that I believe we have a chart on this, a fatality chart. It's deaths by 100 for age and month. And as you can see, deaths have come down for every age group, and for those over 70, that line, that red line, is a testament to what this president has done. Therapeutics, monoclonal antibodies, that is a recent one, that reduces hospitalization in high-risk seniors with moderate to mild COVID by 70%. That's American ingenuity rising to the occasion, and President Trump oversaw all of this. But of course, we are seeing cases rise, and it's very important. Wash your hands, socially distance. We're taking this seriously.
Do you think the mixed messaging contributed to that? Because just this week, for example, yesterday, Vice President Pence wanted to make clear that they supported state and local decision-making. Just 2 days ago, you called some of those state guidelines Orwellian. So how do you expect people to know what to do with all this mixed messaging?
Well, 2 things can happen at once, and it's this: taking COVID seriously, engaging in aggressive mitigation, but also recognizing that the American people have certain freedoms. And it is, by definition, Orwellian for a state like Oregon to say, if you have more than 6 people in your family congregate in your home, we can jail you for 30 days. That's not the American way. The American people know the CDC recommendations, know the guidelines. We've been talking about this for 10 months, but the American people still have certain freedoms, still have autonomy, and still can make important self-responsibility decisions themselves.
Yes, Deborah.
To provide evidence for her assertion
about communist money in the 2020 election. And Byron York, another journalist who's been very fair to this White House, said that it was a turning point, Rudy Giuliani and the conduct at that press conference, where Republicans were feeling that the legal maneuvers just aren't working. So did you all have a reaction to that when you saw that and read about it?
Now let's stay on voter fraud allegations. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and the rest of the Trump campaign's legal team hosted a press conference, once again alleging the existence of a large-scale voter fraud operation. NBCNews.com political reporter Jane Tim is here to walk us through the whole thing.
Here we're going to look at a pretty classic Japanese geometry problem that has to do with 3 circles that are tangent all to the same line. So I've drawn the line down here in white, so we've got tangent to the line and tangent to the green circle. And then this pink circle right here we have fit in the middle of the line, so it's tangent to the line and to each of the circles. And our goal is to determine some sort of relationship between the radii of these circles. So I've named the radius of this circle x, the radius of the green circle is y, and the radius of the pink circle is z. So put another way, we want to find the relationship between x, y, and z, like some sort of equation that they satisfy. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a couple of important triangles in this picture with which we can apply the Pythagorean theorem. So the first triangle that I'm going to look at will be the following. So I'm going to take a triangle down here. So let's drop an altitude. So this is going to have length y. This whole thing will have length y. And then another thing that I want to do is transpose this radius of the smaller circle z over to here. So we'll have this bit right here is length z. But now that means the length of everything left over is y minus z. So I can maybe put that right here, y minus z. Maybe I'll like color this in blue so we can tell that that is length y minus z. Okay, great. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is draw a line which is parallel to our tangency line, but at a distance z. So that means it's going to go through the center of this circle and through this point right here. So I'm going to draw that line right there. Good. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is connect this radius of the circle down to this center right here, just as such. And we know that this is also a radius of the circle, so this guy has length z as well. So we can like put that together and notice that that means this length on the triangle is y plus z. So at the moment we're building a triangle with one leg length y minus z, the hypotenuse is y plus z. Then we don't quite know what this is, and so we'll just give it a name. Let's say that the distance from here to here, in other words, the distance from the points, in other words, the distance between the points which are in other words, the distance between the points that are projected down from the center of these circles, let's maybe call that A. Great. And now what we want to do is notice we can bring this A up, and that's going to be the length of this side of the triangle. Good. So now we can apply the Pythagorean theorem to this, noticing that this is most definitely a right angle. And so we'll have A squared plus y minus z squared equals y plus z quantity squared. Great. So that's like one piece of information that we have gained, which relates the length of y and the length of z with this like horizontal distance down here, a. Good. Now we're going to create a very, very similar triangle, but having to do with the pink circle and the peach colored circle. So I'll kind of do the same thing that I did before. I'll extend this radius coming out from the peach circle to the center of the pink circle. Notice that's going to be length z, which makes this whole thing length x plus z. Good. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is drop a vertical from here down to the line of tangency. So we know that this entire length will be length x because it's also a radius of the circle. Then we can bring this radius over. So like technically what we're doing here is intersecting this line with the unique line that is parallel to the white line that goes through the center of this circle. So here we've got this length right here is going to be z, good, which makes everything left over, which I'll put in blue, x minus z. So we have x minus z for that length.
Тысячи поваров бьются за ваше внимание в приложении Яндекс.Еда. Выбирайте своего победителя и заказывайте любимое. Яндекс.Еда.
Great. Now we can go ahead and complete this triangle just like we had completed the previous triangle by drawing this line parallel to our starting white line. We don't know what the length of that is, but we'll call it b, which is this horizontal distance down here. Okay, great. So now we'll apply the Pythagorean theorem to this triangle over here. So notice we've got b, x minus z, and x plus z. So we can write b squared plus x minus z squared equals x plus z squared. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I've cleaned up my picture for our last triangle, which we will draw. So notice we drew a triangle based on the pink and the green circles, and also on the pink and the peach circles. The last one we want to look at is going to be based on the green and peach circles. And we're going to do about the same thing that we did before. So what I want to start with is taking this radius, which is perpendicular to our white line, and transposing it over here. And so that will give us a segment along this radius of the green circle, which has length x. Great. But what that leaves us with up here is a segment of length y minus x. Good. Then the next thing that I want to do is notice that if I connect this point right here and this center of the circle, I'll be completely parallel to this line, and thus I'll be perpendicular to this purple line and this yellow segment as well. Good, so let's maybe go ahead and make that connection. So here with here, great. And then finally what we can do is connect this with this right here. So in other words, the center of the green circle with the center of the peach circle. Good. And now we can just notice we are going from the center of the peach circle to the edge of the peach circle, then the edge of the green circle to the center of the green circle. So we know that this has length y plus x, and then the length down here is the same thing as the length along our white line at the bottom, so that's a plus b. So this length is a plus b. But now we can apply the Pythagorean theorem to this. So this guy squared plus this guy squared is going to be equal to that guy squared. So we'll get a plus b quantity squared plus y minus x quantity squared equals y plus x quantity squared. Great. So now the next thing that I want to do is multiply out these equations and do some sort of simplification. So notice if I multiply out the first equation, I'll get a squared plus. Nice. So next thing that I can do is cancel out the y squared, the z squared, and the z squared, and then move this guy over and z. Good. Now we can do something very, very similar, almost exactly the same. And then we can do something exactly the same on the last equation. We're just holding this a plus b quantity squared like fixed. And we'll have a plus b quantity squared equals 4x. A equals 2 root yz. B equals 2 root xz. And finally, a plus b equals 2 root xy. But now we know that a plus b equals a plus b, but that means that 2 root xy, but that means that 2 root yz plus with the square root of yz plus the square root of xz equals the square root of xy. But then this is not actually the standard way this solution is presented, although this does give us a relationship between x, y, and z. The standard way this relationship is presented is the equation that you get if you multiply the whole thing by 1 over x, y, z in a square root. So let's see what that gives us. So that's going to give us 1 over root x, so that's like this term right here, plus 1 from that term right there equals 1 over root z. And that's like our final relationship between the 3 radii of these circles. And that's a good place to stop.
It's easy to get lost in Rafik Anadol's surreal installations. But dig a little deeper, and you realize his work is made up of millions of tiny pieces, and that every single little point represents a piece of data that he's fed through a neural network to show us his vision of our future.
I was always trying to speculate this idea of can data become a pigment. At the end, the data is a truly numbers that has no kind of any skin or skeleton. But what I'm trying to as an artist is find the algorithm that can narrate the moment of data, kind of make that invisible moment visible.
Enormous data sets inspire most of Anadol's art, and he uses machine intelligence and algorithms to create visualizations, what he calls data sculptures, like this piece called Machine Hallucinations. He started by finding 113 million images of New York online
and let the machine learn from this entire corpus of data. And then we also find a way to erase the humans from this data and only focus on the buildings, nature, and environments that is a collective memory of New York.
Once all of the images of people were removed, Anadol was left with 10 million pictures of New York. He fed them through a machine learning algorithm that generates visual associations as it learns. For example, when it sees multiple photos of the Statue of Liberty taken from slightly different angles, the algorithm interpolates information to help it create a moving, shifting image that represents the entire life cycle of the structure.
Machine looks at this information like a human being, but it's kind of more like a collective memories than a personal memories, because a building in New York can be explored by thousands of perspectives, from multiple angles, from a different time of the year. It's more like an honest memory for a machine, because it feels more totalitarian and feels everything and everyone than just one person.
Anadol covered the walls and the floor of a boiler room in a building in Lower Manhattan with this machine-interpreted dynamic landscape. If you ask him, he'll tell you that the machine is dreaming.
When a machine learns from outputs and memories like this, it can create an alternative reality. It looks at the patterns of the trees, the buildings, the nature, the people, every single thing hidden inside this image corpus. Seeing a machine giving a context of data and creating an hallucinative outputs was something really inspiring.
Anadol created this piece to celebrate the centennial of the LA Philharmonic, using 500,000 images, thousands of audio recordings, and hundreds of videos from the orchestra's archives. He fed all that into a series of algorithms that turned it into these extraordinary projected images.
By using machine learning algorithms, the entire archive of LA Philharmonic becomes a shape of 3-dimensional outputs. We were able to see all these data points becoming together or disappearing and making kind of a new sculptures.
And the building itself, Frank Gehry's Walt Disney Concert Hall, became part of the sculpture too.
I was always like looking for inspiring buildings, and Frank Gehry became my hero. And I rented a car, went to downtown. It was 2 a.m. The building's light was off, like there was nothing around it. And that night I was really struck by an idea, like what will happen if this building can remember, like can it dream?
So he projected the machine-interpreted archives onto a smaller model of the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Once he settled on something he liked, he projected it onto the bigger, real-life building.
What we are doing is another typical painting, another typical sculpture, but more like an experience from a near future. And when they come together with sound, data, machine intelligence, and light and architecture, they have a new meaning, a new kind of symbiotic connections. I think I was really hooked up by the idea of a building can become an interface. It can be a boring advertising, but it can be a beautiful interface. The ideation of a human instinct become a part of a machine is really strong.
His team used 42 large-scale projectors with an astonishing 50K video resolution to create a dramatic display in downtown LA every night for 10 days, a nod to one of his favorite movies.
I was 8 years old when I watched the movie Blade Runner. I was extremely inspired by the movie. In downtown Los Angeles, a building suddenly becomes alive. And it has this cognitive capacity of remembering, and it has a capacity of dreaming. So this was all like very high-level science fiction narratives.
And the futuristic dystopian film's exploration of more complex